Unraveling the web we have weaved. So I got the idea for this because I was talking to a friend of mine, a dear friend of mine, who said, I need to be perfect to make things work out. And I thought to myself, wow, he's put that together through a lifetime of experience, and this is what he's come to, that he needs to be perfect for things to work out. And then I thought, wow, I'll bet I know that I do that too, and I'll bet everybody else does too, that we have somehow weaved a web of the way things are and how we have to behave to make that work. And if we've weaved it, we can unweave it. You know, this is an incredibly simple teaching, right? The basics of this teaching are 4 words. What you embody manifests. Ernest Holmes and others have written 600 pages and books, and every week a minister gets up here, Barbara, John, me, somebody, to explain what really comes down to 4 words. What you embody manifests. Because it turns out that even though it's so simple, we've weaved so much stuff around ourselves. We've gone through lives that have had all these different things go on that we can actually get lost and think, well, it can't be that simple. It must have to be like this. And somebody says, okay, come on, let's do it like this. This is how you unweave it, or this is how you embody, and this is how you embody. And everybody's got their own different ideas about that, and that's great because each of us are individuals and has our own unique way of taking stuff in and shifting stuff around. Right? Yes. I mean, we don't all do it the same. That's the problem with some generic thoughts like change your thinking, change your life. That's a great idea, but there's a lot more to it than that, but it's a good start point. You got to start somewhere. That's a good starting point. Change your thinking, change your life. But when we're in this teaching for a while, you realize that actually there's a lot more unweaving to do. And so this is how it looks to me. This is my own unique way of looking at this. But before I do that, I don't want to forget the fact that one of the books that was written was mine, called Cliff Notes in the Science of Mind textbook. Cliff Notes, get it? And it's in the bookstore right now, so you can check out my unique way of looking at this stuff by checking out my book. Now I'll move on. So, we're born. We come out, and maybe we come out and all we see is the full light, or maybe we come out with some weaving already blocking some of that light. I don't know. I don't remember. Maybe you do, but I don't. So it starts there, and then at a very, soon thereafter, we find ourselves in somebody's arms where they're holding us, and it just feels so darn good. Because it doesn't matter we're weaving whether it's a good or a bad thing. Everybody thinks all our buttons and all that stuff happens because of trauma and this and that. And I'm thinking, no, good stuff makes that stuff, we weave that too, because once that happens, right, we feel that, we're feeling, oh my God, that feels so good. And then they put us down. And it's like, what just happened? I thought I was going to get to feel like that like forever. What do I got to do to make that happen again? Oh, I know, cry. Right? And so, and then you start weaving that. And I'll tell you for myself, my wife will be very happy to tell you that I still cry if I'm not being held enough. Because I like being held as far as I'm concerned. You could hold me the rest of my days and not do anything else, and I'd be a happy camper. But that's just me. So, and then there's other things, food, how we get food, how we get this. And then maybe some trauma does happen, and we keep weaving, and every time. The thing about thoughts, this is the most interesting thing for me about them, is it doesn't matter how great the thought is or how dark the thought is, they're all limiting. There's stuff going on that's larger than any thoughts you can have. One of my favorite thoughts that has helped me, that I've been working on for about 20 years, is whatever it is I'm thinking, looking at, perceiving, or anything, I remind myself there's more going on than meets the eye. There always is. There's always more going on, and it's up to us to somehow unravel that which we have weaved, which is blocking our view. So we go around in life, and at least for the first part of our lives, many of us didn't have a clue that it is even possible to unravel. Maybe we went to therapy to try this or that, but for the most part, we're unraveling, till the point happens where it's raveled so tight, you can't see any light anymore. Now it's still flexible because it's a weave. But then we call it a button or a trigger, and we've made it even more solid than it already was, rather than the fact that this everything going on is fluid, flexible, and not everything that we're looking at. So then we get into a movement like this, or we go to therapy, or we start doing meditation or something, and all of a sudden we have a breakthrough. There's this little spot where we see some light. And I don't know about you, but everybody I know, the first thing they said is, I'm enlightened now. I see a spot of light. and then totally in wonder why 10 minutes later or 20 minutes later, you're back in the old pattern. I'm enlightened. How did I lose it so fast? I'll give you an example. I am now communing with plants. As an herbalist, that's one of the things I do. I like to go and I like to sit with plants and have conversations with them and be with them. And in that process, this one particular day, I felt completely open, like, wow, this is incredible. I feel the connection of everything. I feel it so deep. My heart is so open. I'm feeling so much love right now. I got to go home and tell Ash. And so I jump in the car and I start driving. And as I'm driving home, I'm looking at all the poor people who don't see as well as I do in that moment. And I drive all the way home. And as soon as I walk in, Ash says, there's water in the closet. And immediately I'm like, whatever feeling I had the second before is now gone. And I'm in the closet yelling at the cat for being in the way. All of a sudden, I'm like, oh my God, we got to do this, we got to do that, right? Just like that, it was gone. Now, maybe I'm the only one that happens to. But what we got here is a situation where, one of the things we can do with that, and here's my second, gift to you for today. Every takeaway for today is every single moment, we are either continuing to ravel that web or unravel it. There's no neutral spot where something is not. We're either raveling or unraveling. And so we have that option. How are we going to be with what it is that is occurring in the moments that stuff happens? And so I've always loved, and Barbara's teaching, because it really gets me off the hook of it's not what you do first, it's what you do second. Right? And so my first was, I'm yelling at the cat and getting all weird about getting stuff out of the closet. My second is I'm laughing at myself for being that way. Not beating myself up, but laughing at myself, because humor really helps. I don't know if you've noticed that. If you want to help your unraveling, humor really helps. Having a humorous look at whatever is going on in life really helps the unraveling. And so that's what we're trying to do, right? That's what we're here to work on. Working on. We're working on the unraveling so that we can see more and more light. But when we think we've seen it all, my favorite analogy of that comes from a movie that Ash had me watch on near-death experiences. This one woman was saying that when she came back, she recognized that we're all walking around with flashlights in a gigantic warehouse. And we shine the flashlight in one corner and go, oh, that's what life is like. And then when we move it over a bit, we go, now I'm enlightened because I see more. I see more. Yes, of course, it's all this. That's what life is like. Now I'm enlightened. And then you die, and the lights of the entire warehouse goes on, and you realize you've been walking around with a flashlight. So what we have here is an opportunity, That word opportunity again. We use that word a lot in our movement, right? But it is. It may be an overused word. It doesn't make it any less true that what we're dealing with here is opportunities. And what are we going to do with them? Now, some people use the opportunities to somehow overcome. I loved what Barbara was saying in this particular thing about how it's not about changing the circumstance. It's about changing ourselves. I mean, it's not what you're doing. It's who you're being, right? Because things are going to play, and your life, the good in life is always there. Every thought is limiting, right? I've already said that. Every thought has a limit to it. It doesn't matter what the thought is, there's more going on. So it doesn't matter what you're looking at, there's more going on. So our opportunity is to see the more, and the more, and the more. Really understand that what's possible here in any moment is being with the divine nature of everything. It's not just that there's only one. It's that we have that ability to be with it, be with the oneness, no matter what's going on. So easy to say. But this is the job, right? This is what's possible. And what happens for us that have walked this path is we get to be in that space more and more often. So I come back from being in that space, deal with the water stuff, and don't make that count like I was never there in the first place. Have you ever done that? Discounted your previous bliss experience because of what happens next? Don't do it. Don't do it. Give yourself the opportunity to know, well, at least I was there then. And that means I get to be there again, because the more you're there, the more you get to be there, the more the unraveling occurs, the more light you see. All of a sudden, things start loosening up even more, and all of a sudden, you're not feeling that button when it's pushed as what's it called? When you just have, what? Reflex response, knee-jerk response, yes. It's not like so bad when you've had the chance to unravel it a little bit because it feels a little looser. I've had that experience. I've had that experience of things I used to have knee-jerk reactions about, now not so much. Are they gone? Not yet, but, I feel like I'm moving in that direction. And the other piece of this is, how honest can you be with yourself around where you are in that process? I know for myself when I was younger, especially when I was younger, like in 20s and 30s, I thought I knew it all. I got this. Right? And now it's much more, okay, I can see where this is loosening. And I know people who are overcritical with themselves the other way. They're not giving themselves the credit they deserve for the progress they've made, right? So it goes both ways. So you want to watch out for that. You want to make sure that what you're doing with yourself is seeing as much of the, I was going to say the full picture, but we're never going to, I don't want to say never. Anything's possible in an ever-expanding universe, but mostly we don't see the full picture. But we can see what we can see, and we can take it in, and in seeing it, it actually works towards the unraveling of seeing more. It opens it up even more. And that's what we have here. That's what excites me about this teaching, is that we get to take these 4 words, what you embody manifests, and until you've embodied the entire universe, what you're dealing with is the limitations that you have that you're working with, right? Which isn't a bad thing. You still get to have a great life, and you get to keep opening more and more. And it doesn't matter the circumstance. The circumstance can have zero impact on how great your life is, unless you let it. And mostly, we let it because we can't see beyond the weave. It's blinding us. People talk about working with their shadow selves, their dark selves. I think it's just this weave that we have woven and that's why they say that enlightenment's like peeling an onion. There's layers after layers after layers. Except, I like thinking of it as a weave because I feel it just seems to have more flexibility for me. I like the idea of giving it an image and an idea that isn't solid like a button. Button feels way solid to me. So keep moving like this. And so I was looking at some of the ways in which we tie up our lives and how we look at stuff. And one of my favorite stories around this is the very first fire walk we ever did here. The very first fire walk was run by a woman we thought knew what she was doing, and she didn't. Which is why John went out and got certified. That's why he did, because we recognized pretty quickly that the people we were asking to lead the firewalk didn't know what they were doing. And so that first year, we built a fire, and this is not an exaggeration, and there are pictures of this, that was about as high as about here. It was a bonfire. It was so hot, it melted Johnny G's glasses to his face. That really happened. Okay? And we spread, and the fire got spread, and when we walked it, it wasn't hot coals, it was fire. Fire that was coming up to about here. And I got a picture of it on the cover of one of my CDs. I'm telling you, it was really like that, right? And so that first year, we had one person who was rushed to the emergency room with 3-degree burns. A lot of people got burned. I didn't have a mark on my foot. And there were others that did not have a mark on their foot, even though it was like that. And I found that fascinating, right? So I actually went around and asked people, what were you thinking just before you walked? All the people who got burnt. Here are some of the answers I got. I didn't want to be the only one not walking. I wanted to overcome my fears. I just didn't want to have gone through that whole workshop without then not walking. I mean, the reasons were solid reasons that people do things for, right? Have you ever done something in your life just to overcome your fears? And did it work out really well? If that was the only reason you did it? The odds are against it, right? And so in looking at all this, what I recognized was there was only one good reason to walk across. I've been to 13 fire walks, all right? I've walked 11 times. And I've never once got burned. Not a mark on my foot, not once. That's really important to this story. Not once. And what I learned was there's only one good reason to walk across fire, because it's yours to do. If it's not yours to do, don't do it. There is no other reason that will get you across that fire unburnt. Not a single one. And so what I took from that, and now this has got to be, I don't know, almost at least 20 years ago, if not 22 or more. I don't know the exact year we had that first fire walk. But it changed my life because I recognized that what was true for that fire walk had to be true for everything. And from that day, I only do things that are mine to do. And so I've got this question I always ask myself before I do anything. Is this mine to do now? Not just is this mine to do. Is this mine to do now? Because maybe a couple minutes from now, it is mine to do, right? I mean, and if I don't get a full body yes, if my entire beingness doesn't answer with a yes, I don't do it. I don't wait for a no. This isn't a yes or no situation. Either I get a full body yes or I don't do it. And that's been my guiding North Star for over 20 years now. That has led me through all the different adventures I've been in, which have been quite a number. And so that's what's really possible here when we are willing to open ourselves up to there's more going on that I don't understand. That full body yes is coming from something larger than this little body. It's my whole beingness in one with the full beingness of all things, and I recognize that. And a lot of times, the yes I get, the yes you get, doesn't always mean it's going to work out the way you intellectually thought it would. Because a lot of times we don't know what's our highest and best. Here we might, but not here. Here. And so then we walk, so I've taken all these steps and all these actions from that place of, is this mine to do now? Now, in the beginning, I had to learn how to trust that, and so I started doing it with things like taking out the garbage. And my wife will tell you, I don't take out the garbage till I get a yes that it's mine to do. And I always do finally get the yes. I always do. That's how once I recognized, Barbara was talking about faith and trust. Once I trusted in that I am a productive, powerful, creative, spiritual being on this planet, I didn't have to worry about, never getting a yes to clean or never getting a yes to taking out the garbage or any of those kinds of things. It just may not be my time to do it at that particular moment, that somebody else may want you to do something. Right? Somebody says, do this now, or can you do this for me now, or however they do that, and then maybe it's not for you to do now. Maybe it's not for you to do at all. But you got to be able to trust yourself, not somebody else coming to you and saying, this is for you to do. You should do this. Don't shit on me. And in that way, we continue the unraveling. When we trust ourselves deeply enough, and the more, trust that higher part of ourselves, trust that part of ourselves that goes beyond our intellectual thinking. Because God knows we can rationalize anything. Have you noticed that? We can rationalize anything. And so it's about getting beyond that, which is why it's about embodiment, because you can't embody here. We embody here. Comes down. Now, I've heard it said that the journey between here and here is the longest journey, but I've come to recognize that that isn't true at all. That these guys want to talk to each other. They want to be in communication. They want to be working together. It's just that we were trained, it's got to be rational. It's got to be linear. We got to think about this stuff. And that gets in our way of unweaving. We unweave from here. We weave from here. But when these two are working together, then all of a sudden, things start to unravel. And have you had a time in your life where it felt like, oh my God, life's unraveling? And that can feel scary. But I'm here to tell you today, it's going to be all right. Unraveling is all right. It may feel scary, but it's all right. Each of us has a divine reason for being, and we're never going to figure it out here. It's here. Opening to that. One of the things I was talking to Barbara about the other day is I think this ought to be called science of heart, not science of mind. And I know inside that Ernest Holmes knew that. He knew it. He knew that the real change doesn't happen here. It happens here. But this is a good place to start because we have a lot of wild thoughts that do not serve us at all. So it's not bad to start here, but you can't end there. You got to bring, the embodiment is here. And so when you're sitting in treatment, or you're sitting with somebody in treatment, and they're in the first step, hang there until you really feel it here. Not just this intellectual thought, yeah, there's only one. Yeah, I got it, there's only one. You don't need to tell me that no more. I got it, there's only one. No. Sit there. Sit there until you feel it, until you know it, until you're experiencing it. And that's embodiment. Man, I never knew what meditation really was until you try meditating with a plant or a tree. They're not going anywhere. They'll help ground you in terms of everything is everything. And then we're unraveling. You know? So you want to look at that. You want to look at how you're doing with your thoughts. How are you doing with your thoughts? And how are you doing with your heart? Opening up that heart. Because this is where we unravel. This is where we get to see more light. One of the first things that Ash and I did when we started being together was we changed from treating for anything specific to simply full flourishing life. And we noticed that the more we focused on that, the more great things that we didn't even think about or, happened. All of a sudden, life was just started unfolding in miraculous ways. We were focused simply on full flourishing life, not what it looked like. Well, recently, I started thinking about divine light. That if I'm focused on full flourishing life, I still may be stuck more in the physical than what the fullness of what's possible. And that's the divine light that is here for all of us. The possibility of opening to it, of being with it, feeling it, walking through life in that place I was feeling with the plants, even when there's water in the closet. The possibility of that alone just pulls me. What about you? Do you feel pulled by that idea that you could have a circumstance that you're hating in life and just being with it in this full open way? Being your fullest and highest self, where then all of a sudden something miraculously occurs. Last thing I want to leave you with is the idea that we talk about treat and move your feet. Many moons ago, I took a class called Creating Through the Sheer Power of Your Consciousness, where you were not allowed to move your feet. The whole purpose of the class, and the only way you got to graduate, is if you focused on something and it showed up without you taking a single action for it. This is long before I learned about treatment, but this was about visualization. Now, the key was to have your emotions out of the way so you couldn't pick anything that was too, emotionally charged or emotionally charged at all. You wanted to pick something that, seemed, but not too easy, because it had to be something that if it showed up, you really thought showed up out of nowhere. And so I picked a $100 bill. Not $100. Had to be a $100 bill. And somebody simply had to hand it to me without me asking for it or putting out, doing anything physically for it. And week after week, I'm in class and we're treating, and I'm not allowed to tell anybody this is what it is. Nobody can know, just holding it within myself. And about the fourth week, I get a knock on the door. The door opens, and a man hands me a $100 bill and says, "This is because of the great work you're doing with my wife," and leaves. Because at the time, I was an unlicensed therapist in New York, which was legal back then, and was doing work with people in this way. And so it made me realize that there's this whole piece to consciousness that really does allow the creation of things without us taking outward action, as long as we're being fully embodied. I mean, clearly, I embodied that $100 bill, or it wouldn't have showed up. So if you want to know how you're unraveling, or whatever, take a look at what you got. Now, I know you've heard Barbara and John say that a million times. You want to know what you've embodied, Look at what you got. It is the most powerful way. But you got to be able to look at what you got and look at how you're being in a way that you can not get not get critical, judgmental, but just be with. Here. And that way you know what's next to unravel. That's how I know. I look at what I'm being with, look at what's going on, and now I know what needs to be unraveling. Now you know what needs to be unraveled. Because the more you unravel, the better you embody the true divine that you are. You are powerful, creative, spiritual beings, able to manifest anything in the unraveling. We see it all the time. Look around at all the miracles. This center has so many people who have had miracles here so often. Not stuff, where the doctors are going, I don't know how that happened. Let's not get stuck in, it has to be done this way, and look for that. That's a real red flag. If you ever hear yourself, well, first step 1, then step 2, and then I got to do step 3. If you hear yourself doing that, you're not in the place of the unraveling. There's a light that you are. There's a light that's going on right here, everywhere, for you to feel, to be. And I know that for you. I know that for me. I know that for all of us. Thank you.